Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Get Your Popcorn. This week we are doing excuse me as I sort my hair out. My God. It's been a day. It's been such a day. That's why I'm literally recording this and then uploading it. So forgive me for looking like garbage. It is what it is. So this week we're doing The Graduate. I'm pretty excited about this one. This is on the top 100 movies of all time for the AFI list. I haven't seen this movie in probably 6 or 7 years. I really like it. It's, if you're looking for something that's good and like about 100 minutes, like this is a good watch. This is obviously the career breakout of Dustin Hoffman, who like has gone through some scandal in the last little bit, but he's one of my, if we're going just from a purely acting standpoint, I think he's one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, I am really excited about this one. On rewatch, I liked it quite a bit. I don't know if I liked it as much as I used to. I think in a more modern sense, this film, there's something that makes me like deeply uncomfortable with large age gap relationships. And especially when the person's like under 25, it makes me feel weird. I think the title character, Benjamin, is supposed to be like he just finished his university, so he'd be like 22. And then it's his parents' friend. And although it's like consensual and stuff, I just feel really kind of ick with like that large of a relationship gap. Yeah, I just feel kind of weird about it in a way that I didn't when I was younger and I watched this movie. And I think you always think that you're more mature than you are. And then when you go past that age threshold and look back at it, you're like, I was just a baby. So the thought of like somebody in their like face being with somebody who's like 22 kind of made me feel a little ick, you know? And also, this is now like the third film where we've seen someone date or marry or sleep with a family member like the same family, you know? Not incest, but like this like mother-daughter thing. We've seen a lot of sister-sister things, boyfriends backing back and forth, but now mother-daughter, which guys, if you have been with one member of a family, I'm not judging, but I'm judging, you know? A little weird. Okay. So producer Lawrence Turnman read the novel by Charles Webb, and he brought the rights for this film for $1,000. He'd seen like the drafts, it wasn't fully released. He then selected Mike Nichols to direct following the Broadway show that he did of Barefoot in the Park with Robert Redford. He pitched the idea to Nichols by saying, I have a book, but I don't have any money. I don't have a studio. I have nothing. So let's do this. We'll make this movie together. Whatever money comes in, we'll split 50-50. And apparently this sold Nichols. Turnman then was turned down by every single studio on his initial pitches, but Mike Nichols' career began to gain some motion after directing the Broadway play The Odd Couple and then also directing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with Elizabeth Taylor, and she had hand-selected him first as a director, so this sort of got the ball rolling. And then he was able to get the film financed. Calder Willingham was hired to write the script, but he absolutely hated the source material, didn't understand it, and when he turned in the script, neither Nichols nor Turnman liked it. They described, the two of them, of having this script capture sort of youth and where they felt it was. And then, I think Calder Willingham was not in that phase of life and didn't quite understand the like nuance that they were seeing. Buck Henry was then hired for rewrites, and he was on the same page. He liked the source material. He was actually a comedy writer for television. So for cast, we've got Dustin Hoffman. He was cast as Benjamin Braddock. He's our protagonist. Robert Redford really pitched himself for Nichols. He wanted to play this part, but Nichols was like, no, you're too good looking. You're charming. Like Benjamin, you got to believe that Benjamin like might not be able to get a girl. And like, have you ever not been able to get a girl? Well, others that were listed were Warren Beatty, Steve McQueen, Anthony Perkins, and George Hamilton. I think it's the same vibe with Warren Beatty and Steve McQueen, just like two classically handsome dudes that just isn't the part. Dustin Hoffman was then considered. He won an Obie for stage production. He had his own reservations because he thought that it should be a Robert Redford type that played the character, and he was really concerned that it wasn't for somebody who was Jewish, and then it wouldn't fit in. So he agreed to fly out to LA for an audition, which he absolutely bombed. He apparently showed up quite disheveled. He was in makeup for hours. He felt like he bombed the screen test. I think he pinched Catherine Ross on the butt, which is part of the allegations that he has that are not so great. So he thought he bombed it, and then he got a phone call saying you got it. We have Anne Bancroft as Mrs. Robinson. Others considered were Alana Turner, Rita Hayworth, Ellie Winters, Ingrid Bergman, and Ava Gardner. And she's actually only 8 years older than the woman who's playing her daughter, Catherine Ross, and only 6 years older than Dustin Hoffman. But this is classic Hollywood. Men can play their own age or way older, way younger, and women, the second you turn 30, are put out to pasture. Catherine Ross plays Elaine Morrison. Catherine Ross plays Robinson. On the list were Natalie Wood, Jane Fonda, Tuesday Weld, and Anne Margaret. I feel like Anne Margaret would have been too old to play her. I think Jane Fonda would have been a really cool casting for this at that point. She would have probably just done Barbarella, like it's like pre-shag haircut Jane Fonda. Then we have William Daniels, who plays Mr. Braddock. We have Murray Hamilton, who plays Mr. Robinson. Initially, Gene Hackman was cast, but he was fired during rehearsals due to the fact that he looked too young. And then we have Elizabeth Wilson as Mrs. Braddock. So for the production, they rehearsed for 3 weeks like a play, which Dustin Hoffman was blissfully unaware that was not what traditional movies were. He comes from a stage background. I do think all the best actors in Hollywood definitely come from more of a stage background. I've gone into that lots when we talk about Al Pacino. They used for shooting a lot of handheld cameras as well as hidden cameras. Of course, Simon and Garfunkel do the iconic soundtrack. So reception of this film was it made $109 million on a $3 million budget. So that is approximately $1 billion on a $28.8 million budget. It's number 7 on AFI's top films of all time and 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. Of course, the Rotten Tomatoes, it's never quite accurate because it gets adjusted over time as more people review it. Letterboxd score is 4.1. My score, I gave it a 4. And then my personal Letterboxd thing that I wrote down was Mrs. Robinson walked so Stifler's mom could run, which I thought was a really funny joke. Hope you're with me on that one. Roger Ebert, I gave it 4 stars, saying hardly know whether to laugh or to look inside ourselves. Variety magazine said, had the story been told in terms of straight drama, it would have been one of those boring modern Mellers, the hippie equivalent to a woman's picture, in which the vacant stares are supposed to convey emotion and plot action, and jazzed up cinematics became obvious and pretentious. To be sure, Nichols, in his second feature film, has laid on with a towel most of the current gimmicks, but thanks to a strong script, they are not noticeable for most of the film. So for our Academy Award nominations, it was nominated for Best Picture, and check out the lineup on this one, alongside In the Heat of the Night, Bonnie and Clyde, Dr. Dolittle, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. So I'm going to also nominated for Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Cinematography. It won Best Director for Mike Nichols. It lost Best Picture to In the Heat of the Night. I think it should have lost to Bonnie and Clyde, but that's fine. Best Actor went to Rod Steiger as for In the Heat of the Night. Best Actress went to Katharine Hepburn for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Best Supporting Actress lost to Estelle Parsons for Bonnie and Clyde. Best Adapted Screenplay lost to The Heat of the Night. I think that's fair. And then cinematography to Bonnie and Clyde. And yeah, the cinematography was beautiful in that film. So I feel like it's fair. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it needs to be Best Actor, Best Actress movie. It is great and iconic, but I think there are better performances, particularly for Best Supporting Actress with Catherine Ross. Like, she's fine. But like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't think she was amazing. Notably for this Academy Awards, this is right after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, and all the African American stars who were supposed to be in the ceremony withdrew due to the mourning. He died on April 4th. The Academy Awards were April 12th. So this was Sidney Poitier, Sammy Davis Jr., Louis Armstrong, and Diane Carroll. We'll get into the plot. So Benjamin Braddock, he comes home from university to his parents' house, and they have sort of a grad party for him. And Benjamin is kind of like, he doesn't really know what to do. He's in that like weird limbo in your early 20s where he's like, he's technically a grown up, but like not really. He spends a lot of time at the pool in his parents' backyard floating around. There's a lot of criticism from his dad. He also spends some time in a scuba suit. It's, he's just kind of aimless in your early 20s. I think we've all kind of been there. So during his graduation party, he speaks to Mrs. Robinson. She asks him to drive her home. Benjamin's father works with her husband. Once there, once he kind of drops her off. It's very clear that she's trying to get something going. So this is where we have that iconic scene where we see the through the leg shot, and we get this dialogue. Benjamin says, "For God's sake, Mrs. Robinson, here you are. You got me in your house. You gave me a drink. You put on your music. Now you start opening up your personal life and tell me your husband won't be home for hours." Mrs. Robinson, so Benjamin says, "Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me." And he says, "Aren't you?" And he's very nervous. And I do have a correction as I've been reading through my notes here. Benjamin is 20, which makes this way grosser. Not 22, 20, 20. So he kind of pushes off her advances, and he kind of leaves. And then later he invites her to meet him at a hotel, and they start having an affair under the last name of Gladstone. So they kind of do this for a while. They're meeting on and off at the hotel. And so there's lots of this, and lots of conversations. And through this, he learns that Mrs. Robinson has a daughter that's like Benjamin's age. He makes a joke that he should date Elaine, her daughter, instead. And she is pissed. But like, obviously that's like a weird thing. But I also feel like Mrs. Robinson is like kind of grooming him. And it made me feel like really icky on rewatch of this. And this is where we start this kind of almost like screwball nature to the dynamic, is because of course these are two sets of family friends, the parents and the kids are the same age. The parents, Benjamin's parents and Mr. Robinson, start kind of bugging Benjamin, like, "Oh, you should ask Elaine out, like you should do this." He kind of gets into a situation where you can't really say no because they're like bugging him, and he's 20, so he somewhat listens to his parents still. And he takes her out on a date, but he does everything to make this date go horribly. He is being super rude to her. He ends up taking her to a strip club. She leaves in absolute tears. But then this like guilt comes in, and he chases after her. He apologizes and he kisses her, and then they end up having like a real date and having a real conversation because they are both in the same point in their life. So they discuss like, being in your 20s, early 20s, or your first 20 things like the future, and like feeling like uneasy, and like, I think we've all been there. And I think, when you, Mike Nichols, listening to them talk about wanting to capture that feeling of being in your early 20s, these are the scenes that like really, really are kind of excel for this. They end up going to the hotel that Benjamin is having the affair with Mrs. Robinson at to have a drink at the bar, and the staff know him by Mr. Gladstone, and Elaine's not a dumb girl. She figures out this guy is clearly having an affair with somebody married, and Benjamin, when she kind of questions him about this, admits to it, but he doesn't admit that it's her mother. And you can see Benjamin starting to really like Elaine, and he's like, "It's done though, like we're not a thing anymore," which is not true. Mrs. Robinson is obviously not pleased that the date has gone well, and that's obviously like not what Mrs. Robinson wants. She's been pretty clear she doesn't want him anywhere near Elaine. What I forgot to mention through this is he actually calls her Mrs. Robinson the whole time. He's not calling her by her first name. It's Mrs. Robinson. We actually don't know her name. It's just Mrs. Robinson, which is so weird. And she threatens, "Okay, well, I'm going to tell her." And Benjamin does, I think, what every PR team is doing now for celebrities, is like when there's a scandal that the press has, they just release the information first. And so Benjamin kind of races after this conversation to Elaine, and he says, "Elaine, I have to tell you something." "What is it?" "That woman." He says, "What?" Benjamin says, "That woman, that older woman that I told you about." And Elaine says, "The one?" Benjamin says, "Yes, the married woman. That wasn't just some woman." And Elaine says, "What are you telling me, Benjamin? Will you just tell me what this is about?" And then Elaine turns around and she sees her mother standing in the doorway, and she looks in total shock, clicks this all together, and she says, "Oh no." Benjamin says, "Elaine." Elaine says, "Oh my God." Benjamin says, "Please." And Elaine is like, "Get out of here." Elaine starts crying and screaming at him, "Get out, get out, get out, get out." And Mrs. Robinson says, "Goodbye, Benjamin." Elaine then goes back to her own college. Benjamin tries to follow her there. He wants to get her back. He's hell-bent on dating her now. But she starts dating another guy. And her mother, Mrs. Robinson, also lied to Elaine, saying that Benjamin sexually assaulted her when he didn't. I think it's kind of, you would have like a slight argument that Mrs. Robinson did I mean, legally not assault, but like it is grooming. Like she has known this boy since he was a child. But when she ends up learning that this is not true, and then her and Benjamin get back together, and Benjamin really wants to get married, and she doesn't really know what to do. Her father finds out about the affair and confronts Benjamin. He tells Benjamin that him and Mrs. Robinson are getting a divorce, and he basically threatens him and saying that he can no longer see Elaine. And then Mr. Robinson pushes Elaine into marrying this other guy named Carl. You know, because Elaine has no free will as a person, apparently. Benjamin tries to prevent this marriage. He goes back to Elaine's parents' house. Mrs. Robinson is there, who basically says, you can't prevent this. He then goes to the wedding venue as far as he can, which is 300 miles away. It's kind of a race against time. His car then runs out of gas, so he sprints to the church. He runs into the church just as they are about to get married. He convinces her to stop the wedding and to run off with him. Mr. Robinson tries to stop him, and he is, the wedding guests are trying to stop him, and they're kind of just brushing them away, running through the church doors. He then has a large cross that he picks up, these kind of batting people back with, that then he then locks the church doors with after they leave, and they run away and they escape. And this is that iconic shot of them like running onto the bus, sitting down, like looking at each other, smiling, and then like looking forward, and kind of the light going out of their eyes with the like, what did I just do? As the Hello Darkness, My Old Friend song plays. And I think this is just like a lot of things that happen in your 20s where you just like make these choices and you're like, oh fuck. Because you don't think about the consequences. You used to sleep with her mother. Her father hates you. You're in the same law firm as your parents, like, right? You're just like living off emotion and like point A to point B. You're not really thinking. It's the uncertainty of being in your 20s and the uncertainty of, just that stage of life. And I think it does perfectly capture that. This film it's a good one. It's a good rewatch. It does make me feel a lot ickier than it used to. I think just as I've grown older and like our perspectives have really shifted from like the first time I watched this film in like 2017 to now. Anyway, that's The Graduate. And next week we're kicking off our Summer of Spielberg. Stay tuned.